Good evening and welcome to Maratha Chamber of Commerce, Industries and Agriculture. It's indeed our pleasure and privilege to welcome today Dr. Deepak Parekh, and we have now the opportunity to listen to him on the report which they have recently submitted to the government.
Members of the Maratha Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, members of the Pune International Center, my friend Vijay Kelkar, Bapu Karandikar, and ladies and gentlemen. It's the final report we have to give by January end, and this is a report on how to finance the infrastructure needs of the country. Let me first provide a broad overview of the macro situation. As far as India is concerned, the immediate macro trends look disappointing, but not hopeless. As you know, the first quarter numbers of GDP from April, May, June, which have been announced, in fact, we are ready to get the second quarters, India grew at a GDP growth rate of 5.5%. The first 3 months of the calendar year, GDP growth was only 5.3%. So one way we can see, and I personally feel and I'm convinced that the worst is over, and hopefully we are on a better trajectory. As I said, I personally feel that the worst is over, and the expectation by different authorities, whether it's the Reserve Bank or the Government of India or the Planning Commission, is that for the year 12-13, it should be somewhere between 5.5% and 6%. That's the growth they are expecting. Now, if you look at the breakup of India's GDP, the majority, the largest component of that is services sector. Services sector constitutes 68% of the GDP. And the service sector over the years has been growing very rapidly. We've had 8-9% growth regularly on the service sector for the last decade. Unfortunately, the agriculture depends on the vagaries of the monsoon. The monsoons are good, the crops, but even then agriculture has grown 3-4-5%, not more than that. Industry is where the problem is. Manufacturing is where the problem is. Investments are not coming in the manufacturing sector. There is a negative growth in capital spending by the corporate sector. So the problem really is the manufacturing sector. Manufacturing grows at 1 and 2%. We cannot achieve 7-8% GDP growth that we want. So the problem I see is on the manufacturing side. Now, it is not a consolation, but if you see the global growth rate, the projected growth rate for the calendar year 2012, world growth is expected to come down from 3.8 to 3.3. So the world as a large, as one entity, will grow only at 3.3%. I am convinced that the problems we have are internal problems, are self-inflicted problems, are problems created by us. We cannot blame external causes or external factors that is responsible for slowing down, like Europe is collapsing, so India will slow down. I think it's an excuse. As all of you know, that until a month ago, the India story was written off at a remarkable pace. Most analysts were saying that India would be the first BRIC nation that will fall off the cliff. Rating agencies were determined to bring India's status down to junk, Indian bond paper to junk status. And obituaries on Indian economy were written as front page stories in international media. So this has really changed the hype. The hype has suddenly increased. Bombay Stock Exchange index touched a 1-year high. Now, is this hype justified? We've not yet seen any growth, any progress on the ground level. I think there is some justification that at least we feel the government has now woken up to the fact that they need to do something. They have realized that consequences of not doing anything would be far greater than doing something. And I think this is a positive move. It's not going to solve all our problems, but I think it's a good beginning, it's a good start, it's better late than never, and we'll see how this momentum is carried on by the government in the future as we go along. Now, as this was happening, we had been working in the Planning Commission to prepare this report of how to finance infrastructure in the 12th plan. Just to give you some numbers, the private sector investment in infrastructure during the earlier plans. in the 10th plan, which was 202 to 207, private sector's contribution was only 22% in infrastructure. Government's 78. 11th plan, which completed in March 12, private sector's investment was 38%. Total investment as a percentage of GDP also has been increasing over every 5-year plan. It was 5% in the 10th plan, it was 7% in the 11th plan, and it is expected to be 9% in the 12th plan. And the investment, the $1 trillion, really gets converted into 51 lakh crores. Now, if you see the performance, and again, these are government numbers, if you see the performance of the 11th plan, the government number says that 95% of the target was achieved by the government, by the country. Now, if we talk of this $1 trillion, and if we talk of the 12th plan, which is from 12 to 17, 2012 to 2017, 4 items constitute 80%. So 80% of the investments are going to be in roads, bridges, telecom, railways, and power. The rest is in ports, storage, irrigation, water supply. So let us look at what we can do in the power sector, which is the most critical. If the government takes a business as usual approach, we will never achieve this target. So we have to have a war footing, we have to have a different kind of speed in order to achieve some of these numbers. So business as usual will not work. The committee also noted that the present infrastructure deficit implies a large unmet demand. There is a huge unmet demand and therefore the urgency. Land acquisition, environmental clearances, and regulatory uncertainties are applicable across the board. So if you look at the power sector, there have been some encouraging developments in the recent month. The government announced a restructuring package of the state electricity boards. The state government, what the government said is state electricity boards are bankrupt, most of them. State electricity boards' net worth is negative. And so when they buy power from power producers, they are unable to pay for it. So no power producers can survive if what they sell they cannot collect. As a result, they bring down their capacity and they don't produce power and they don't sell, and then there's shortage of power across the country. So one of the issues was we have to sort out the state electricity boards. So state electricity board, what the government announced recently is that 50% of the outstanding debt of the SEBs will be taken over by the state government. And the state government will issue bonds, and the balance 50% of the outstanding loans will be converted with a 3-year moratorium and a longer repayment period. So this is the way they are trying to make the state electricity board sound so that they can start buying power from the power producers. At least it's a good beginning, and I think it was absolutely necessary to give some comfort, give some consolation to the power producers that at least we'll get our money. SEBs would be, they've put one caveat, which is, it's like a carrot and stick thing, that state governments will do this and the loans will be rescheduled by the banks only if they reduce transmission and distribution losses. And they have to increase tariffs. If they do this, then they'll get this package of restructuring package. So the committee observed that there is urgent need to reform electricity distribution. Losses in transmission and distribution are extremely high. Therefore, tariffs need to be set at sustainable levels, while collection efficiency has to increase to reduce losses. Now, what is the problem? There is need to adopt this PPP in distribution. We've done it in a few cities only. Therefore, we have said that in distribution, we should do more PPP projects like Bhiwandi, like Agra, like Gujarat. Coal supply. The two raw materials where the biggest roadblocks are supply of coal. So we have recommended that if Coal India cannot increase the supply, you must import coal. The committee also recommended setting up a new central public sector undertaking for engaging PPPs. How do you start PPPs in different, today the power ministry is unable to monitor it. So if central unit is there, central public sector unit is there, then it can manage this PPP on coal across. Even in gas, the committee recommends that import of gas is to increase generation and utilize idle capacity. Now, if you switch to highways, National Highway Authority needs to be, their operations needs to be streamlined. What they do is 9 months of the year they don't give any contracts. The last 3 months of the year, because they have pushed the BOT contracts. And this needs to be done on a uniform pattern, otherwise it won't work. Then on the Expressway Authority, the government had said that we will set up an Expressway Authority. This needs to be constituted. Expressway program, they said there will be a separate Expressway Authority. This has not happened. Telecommunication. What we have recommended in telecommunication is, first of all, the FDI limit should be increased to 100%. Spectrum pricing, the EGOM should make some progress, make some headway on spectrum pricing. We also suggested that spectrum allotted in the past, how do you price that, how do you share it, how do you allocate it? On railways, again, on railways you know that fares have been stagnant for years. We have suggested that rationalization of uneconomic passenger fares has to be done on an urgent basis. We have recommended PPP in redevelopment of railway stations, high-speed rail projects. We have suggested that Mumbai-Pune, why don't you give it out, bid it out, and take money and let the private sector run it for 10 years, and you take your money up front and use that money to improve railway facilities elsewhere. So certain sectors which can be monetized, try and do that. Manufacturing of diesel and electrical engines, coaches, wagons, why can't we have PPP? So if you do some PPP in this, it would help. Restructuring of the railway board. We have a rail board where the chairman has no powers. They're all members. The members are stronger than the chairman. So we have said, let the railway board function like a corporate board. Let the chairman have some powers. Align responsibility and duties of different members and let it work like a cohesive body rather than individually working. Finally, I wanted to say on IIFCL, we had recommended, the government had set up this company, I think in 2006. India Infrastructure Finance Company Limited. It's a 100% government-owned company. We said that the role of IIFCL should be changed. Today, what they have been doing since 2006, they're lending side by side to banks. So they are only giving little incremental funding. We would like the IIFCL to use their sovereign status to guarantee infrastructure projects or to part guarantee infrastructure projects. Again, this is a broken record which we've been saying, and I've heard Vijay say it so often. We need a vibrant bond market with sufficient debt. There is no debt market in India. And unless we have a debt market in India, how will private sector raise money? So to conclude, I would like to say that although we have been accused that infrastructure is lack of infrastructure is a problem, I think infrastructure is also an opportunity. Infrastructure can become an opportunity for private sector to invest, provided land and regulatory clarity is there, environment, land and regulatory. So unless we make the regulatory approval simpler, easier, I don't think private sector will come into infrastructure. And with the performance of Indian infrastructure promoters, I don't see even foreign parties coming into India and investing large amounts in infrastructure projects. So, you know, there is this complexity in our business that sometimes it makes more sense to invest abroad, supply to India than invest in India. We have to change these, otherwise why would people come to India? And but I still feel that I'm still optimistic, and that I would say that infrastructure is a huge opportunity for Indian businessmen, and we have to encourage Indian businessmen to get into infrastructure. But I think we need infrastructure, otherwise we can forget about the 8-9% growth. And unless we put our heads together and see how we can raise this $1 trillion. Now the final point I want to make is that the final report we give, what we are trying to do is we are trying to ascertain from the banking sector, from LIC, from other insurance companies, from pension funds, from IIFCL, from IDFC, how much money we can generate from the next 5 years, which we can generate, which we are willing to give to infrastructure, obviously provided viability of the projects are there. And then see what the gap is, what can be done through ECB, what can be done through multilateral agencies. So we, in this final report which will come out, we are going to allocate that to see that money is available, viability must be there, and government must work. So I think I probably have extended my time, but thank you once again.